Hey everyone, this will be a shorter video focusing on some lesser known separatist movements across the world. Hope you enjoy. I'll start off with two separatist movements here in the Nordics, as that's where I'm from and I do know quite a bit about these regions. So, let's get to it. First we'll take a look at the Oland Islands in Finland. The Oland Islands are an island chain in the west of Finland with a majority Swedish-speaking population. Historically, they have been a part of Sweden along with the rest of Finland and were lost to Russia in the Finnish War between the Russian Empire and Sweden, with the British supporting Sweden as well as Denmark and France supporting Russia. The conflict was essentially the last nail in the coffin for the Swedish Empire, which was already on its last legs. Later on, when Finland gained independence from the Russian Empire during the Russian Civil War, Finland kept the islands. This resulted in some dispute over what should happen with the islands, as the local Swedes feared losing their language and culture with time. A compromise was reached. Until this day, they have been guaranteed quite a bit of autonomy, despite remaining Finnish territory. We don't have recent data on whether or not the people there would rather join Sweden, but an unofficial referendum was held in 1919, where a staggering 95% voted for joining Sweden. So one can assume that they would likely still prefer to join Sweden, as they still retain their Swedish language and culture. If this were to happen, of course not much would change. The population and GDP of the Oland Islands are both so low that comparing Sweden and Finland afterwards would be pretty pointless. But it would expand Sweden's control over the Baltic Sea slightly, and benefit their economy a tiny bit. But given that Oland already has quite a bit of autonomy, and that both countries have similar standards of living, life wouldn't change much for the people of Oland. Now, let's move on to a region right next to my hometown of Copenhagen, Skåne. In the south of Sweden, you will find the region of Skåne, or Scania, as well as the greater Skåneland region. This region has historically been a part of Denmark, giving it a culture and dialect which is very distinct, having many of the same quirks as Danish. This can even make it difficult for other Swedes to understand Scanians, much like they have a difficult time understanding Danes. Apart from having been Danish, what also ties the Scania region to Denmark is its proximity to Copenhagen, which is much closer than Stockholm. Many people in Scania regularly drive over to Copenhagen for work, to go to university, for the nightlife and cheaper alcohol, or whenever they want to travel, as the nearest major airport is also in Denmark. All in all, this exposes Scanians more to Danish language and culture, increasing the overall Danish influence there. Other than Scania's close cultural, linguistic, and economic ties to Denmark, it also sets itself apart from the rest of Sweden with its more anti-immigration and right-wing politics, which can clearly be seen in Swedish elections. This has all resulted in some Scanians, as well as other Swedes, supporting either giving the territory back to Denmark or giving it more autonomy or even independence. We don't have exact numbers on how many people in Scania would actually want to reunite with Denmark, but the closest thing to real data we have is a Swedish newspaper, which did a poll on the matter, where a slight majority said they wanted to return Scania to Denmark. The rest of Sweden, oddly enough, also have their reasons for entertaining the idea of returning Scania to Denmark. It is a pretty widespread joke in Sweden, and sometimes also meant more seriously, as the divide between Scania and the rest of Sweden can also be a problem for some Swedes. There are even a few songs about returning Scania to Denmark.
Jag vill ge Skåne tillbaka till Danmark och slippa.
But what is important to say about this is that this separatist movement is very different from separatist movements in, say, Catalonia. While it can be argued that Scania is just as distinct, people are at least more content with the status quo. Life in Sweden is not that much different from life in Denmark, and as the countries have open borders, Scanians can still just go to Copenhagen without any restrictions. People are not in the streets protesting about this or anything like that. I also want to quickly entertain this more obscure separatist movement and show you how things would change if it were to achieve its goals. In short, it wouldn't really have a profound impact on the world, but it would change the balance of power in the Nordics. Today, Denmark's population is just under 60% the size of Sweden's, and its economy is a bit over 60% the size of Sweden's. If the Scania region was returned to Denmark, it would make Denmark and Sweden practically equal in both of those regards, with Denmark growing to a population of 7.7 million and with Sweden shrinking down to 8.4 million. Their economies would be even closer, with Denmark at 440 billion and Sweden at 470 billion. Now, let's move away from Europe and over to Africa. Ethiopia is a nation which is extremely divided. The two largest ethnic groups are the Oromo and Amhara, which each make up 32 and 28% of the population. In 1991, a coalition government in Ethiopia, using a federal system, came to power. And after Abiy Ahmed, someone with a multi-ethnic, as well as both a Muslim and Christian background, was elected, things seemed to be going well for Ethiopia. But more recently, the government has brought several reforms at the expense of the region of Tigray's influence, and Abiy Ahmed has been wanting to form a new political party. The Tigray government has refused to take part in this, as they would lose much of their remaining influence, and this has sparked conflict in Ethiopia. It's a complicated situation, and my explanation is certainly oversimplified. But apart from the political reasons for this conflict, Tigray also has its own distinct culture and language, which is of course part of what is stirring up this nationalistic sentiment. If this conflict were to end with Tigray independence, it would become a minor nation in the region with a population of around 5 million. It could also result in a balkanization of Ethiopia, since other minorities may push for their own independence. This would certainly impact the region and Africa as a whole quite a bit. Ethiopia has the perfect geographical positioning to become a regional power, but of course this will not happen if Ethiopia is torn apart. Lastly, let's move over to Asia and Balochistan. Balochistan is a region divided between Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan. It is one of the many instances where colonialism has led to arbitrary borders which don't take local ethnic or linguistic divisions into account. It is a historical region which is home to the Iranian people group, the Baloch, with their own distinct language and culture. Balochistan has throughout history been controlled by various Iranian and Indian empires and kingdoms, and more recently it was split between what would become modern Iran, the British Raj, and Afghanistan. In Iran, the Separatists haven't gained much traction, but in Pakistan there has been ongoing conflict and insurgencies by Baloch nationalists who have fought with the government many times. Drivers of the conflict generally feel that the majority Punjabi people in Pakistan marginalize and oppress the Baloch minority. If Balochistan were to become its own nation, with the Iranian and Afghan portions joining, it would end up as a pretty minor nation in the region, with a population of around 19 million. It would obviously also make Pakistan significantly smaller, but Iran and Afghanistan would not be affected much. But that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed this shorter video, taking a look at some more obscure separatist movements. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell button. Also, stay tuned for more content very soon. I'll see you next time.